It was late at night, and the parents of Grant, Garrett, and Tony lay sleeping in their beds. Both families were about to be awakened by a phone call. Unfortunately, it would be that phone call. That call in the middle of the night. That call that every parent dreads. The Drapers and the Garcias were now wide awake, but the nightmare was only about to begin.
The phone call alone.
This is bad.
And sitting up and getting that, hearing that, you out of a sleep, you're trying to adjust. And it instantly going to God and just asking Him to intervene, praying over the boys while you're getting ready, while you're throwing a cap on, while you're, running to the car to get to the hospital.
And I said, you have to tell me more. I mean, are they alive? He said, I do think they're alive. I don't know. Emergency people are here. The worst things are going through your mind, but for me, a surge of hope is going through me. I hope it's going to be okay. I trust God that it's going to be okay.
Both? That's like two?
Yeah, I knew that they were out together that night. And to get the phone call that they are both hurt, I can't even explain. It was a punch to the gut, and to hear that Tony was involved. Tony is like a son to us.
It's Labor Day weekend, and he goes out of town, and I'm at home, and get a call around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning from one of Tony's friends, Rachel, and she calls me and says that Trey was in an accident.
And I get this call, and it's a nurse. I'd missed a couple of calls because I was already asleep, and I checked my recordings, and it's a nurse from the hospital, and saying that my son had been in an accident.
It began on a night of celebration. The banner pointed the way to a 21st birthday party. For 3 friends of the birthday girl, college-aged young men, the festivities at the Grove Apartments in Denton would end in disaster. A collapsed balcony, a 3-story fall, and terrible life-changing injuries on the concrete parking lot below.
Questions persist tonight after a balcony collapse injured 3 young men at a Denton apartment complex early Saturday.
So unusual and disturbing was the situation, TV news crews from Dallas-Fort Worth reported from the scene those early morning hours on September the 3rd, 2011. 3 men had been standing on the balcony outside apartment 131 when the metal railing gave way. All 3 plummeted to the hard concrete below.
I just imagined how afraid they were at the point that the balcony broke.
For Grant to tell the story.
Yeah.
That when the balcony collapsed,
He and Garrett grabbed hands.
they grabbed hands and they're looking at each other while they're falling.
The injuries were so severe, 3 CareFlight Air Ambulance helicopters had to be called to take them into the hospital. At the time, Denton City Council member Kevin Roden called for inspections, citing potential architectural problems. Chastity Brown, a spokesperson for Campus Crest, the company that owns the Grove, admitted to WFAA-TV that the railing involved in the incident was a decorative and non-weight-bearing structure, which was not designed to support the weight of 3 full-grown adults. A more thorough investigation shows much more than a tragic accident. It shows a systemic failure that was the result of poor management, a disregard for safety, and a fast-paced construction schedule. The pressure was on to complete the project before the next semester of school started. A missed deadline would be costly. As things worked out, the three young men would pay the high cost of construction. In deposition testimony, Campus Crest president Brian Sharp pointed the finger at everybody, saying there are 5 parties at fault: Campus Crest Construction, architect James Browning, rail fabricators Meyer Smith, door and frame contractors J&E Construction, and structural engineers D'Amato DCI. There's more than enough liability to go around. The Grove website bills the complex as the place for fully loaded college living. It's part of the nationwide network of Campus Crest housing complexes aimed at off-campus college student housing. The Denton complex features wrought iron details outside called Juliet balconies. The evidence shows these Juliet balconies were not designed to be fully loaded, and the balcony doors were never meant to be opened. Construction problems were obvious to the visual eye, according to Meyer Smith, the company that built the balconies. Just 2 weeks before the incident, Sandy McCormick of Meyer Smith Incorporated fired off a precautionary note by email, followed that day by a strongly worded certified letter reinforcing the potential danger of the Juliet balconies. In it, McCormick had noted the clubhouse balcony door was opened. He stressed, too, Campus Crest Construction and the property manager personnel the importance of restricting access to the balconies. As designed and approved by all parties during the submittal review process, those rails are intended to be decorative only, wrote McCormick. They are not designed, fabricated, or installed to provide structural support to one or more persons. McCormick continues to say, deadbolts should be installed and locked at all times for the safety and well-being of all persons who have access to this store and Juliet rail. Architectural drawings submitted to the City of Denton specifically point out that the 6-foot 2-inch doors are to be fixed shut and be on top of 6-inch curbs. According to James L. Browning, the project architect, I designed the apartment doors to be fixed, the sill be 6 inches above the finished floor and inoperative. Pictures taken from the scene and of other balconies at the complex show raised curbs outside the balcony doors were never built by Campus Crest Construction. J&E Construction then installed the wrong-sized doors without question. 6 small bolts littering the ground below also proved the balconies were not affixed in a manner meant to support weight. And pictures taken from inside the apartments show there were no deadbolts or warnings posted that would have prevented residents from using the balconies. On September the 6th, Campus Crest Construction Director of Administrative Operations sent a letter back to Meyer Smith claiming that it is critical the balconies provide the proper support. That letter was sent 3 days after the tragedy, an obvious effort to place blame elsewhere. But the documents clearly show Campus Crest had been warned of the potential danger and did nothing to seal the balcony doors or alert residents of the hazards of walking outside. Shockingly, resident Rachel Donis testified in a deposition she was charged extra for a balcony apartment for months after the accident.
And they told us that if we paid an extra fee of about $15 a month, we get a private balcony and extra, I think she said, a foot of room in the kitchen area.
Who told you that there was a private balcony?
The manager.
So Christine or Christina?
Yes.
Aside from just generally saying that you would have a private balcony, did they mention anything else about the balcony?
No.
And did they use the word balcony?
Yes.
A balcony that was only supposed to be decorative, not usable. Campus Crest president himself, Brian Sharp, says 5 parties were at fault. That is true. Door and frame contractors, J&E Construction, ignored the architect's plans by failing to install the safety curb that would have kept the decorative balcony doors closed. Fabricators Meyer Smith knew the balconies were faulty, yet made no effort to prevent a dangerous situation turning deadly. Architect James Browning could have been on site for just $800 a day, even occasionally. Yet, he made no effort to inspect or ensure his plans were followed. Structural engineers, D'Amato DCI, also stood idle, without follow-up to ensure the plans were followed and the apartments secure. And Campus Crest Construction clearly rushed the job, putting profit over safety. 3 months after the accident, Campus Crest executives received bonuses based on the speed of construction. The facts of the case clearly meet the definition of gross negligence that the judge will submit to the jury. All defendants acknowledge there was an extreme degree of risk to the people on the property. That risk is documented by the testimony, plans, drawings, and correspondence in this case. The evidence shows an intentional deviation from the plans submitted to the government, a failure to visit and inspect to ensure compliance, seeing the danger, yet failing to ensure that the warning message was received and acted upon. All parties knew of the extreme risk, and all parties showed conscious indifference to the safety of others through their actions and/or omissions in the days leading up to the balcony collapse. It was combined gross negligence and a conscious disregard for safety of the residents that allowed 3 young men enjoying a party to nearly die. All suffered serious injuries that brought an abrupt end to active lives. Tony Garcia suffered an open book pelvic fracture, an excruciating injury that tears the ligaments and breaks the pelvis wide open like a book. After weeks of painful rehab, Garcia still has issues with prostate and urination functions. Garrett Draper was placed in a medically induced coma for 5 days. He awoke to find his broken jaw wired shut. He's needed multiple surgeries to insert and then remove a rod in his femur. He has plates and screws in his right arm, and he suffers from PTSD and panic attacks. Garrett Draper was in training to be an EMT and paramedic. Those dreams are now on hold, possibly forever. Grant Draper has had numerous surgeries to save his foot, which was degloved on the impact. The pain, even now, is so great, he sometimes wishes his foot would be amputated. That's still a medical possibility. Grant Draper has been told by his doctors he will never run or lift weights again. When Brad Draper, the father of the 2 boys, heard the facts of this so-called accident, this was his reaction.
To ensure the safety and well-being of all persons who have access to this door/Juliet rail condition. My sons were injured because some son of a bitch didn't do his or her job. Those 3 young men suffer because that simple letter was not adhered to. That's wrong. People need to understand, what if it was their child or their mother or father or a relative?
Well, exactly, and that's kind of what I'm saying, is nobody thinks about those things because they don't foresee them to happen. It doesn't, it's never going to happen to us, but when it does happen to you, and then you see that something like this was raised as an alert.
It's criminal. It's criminal. It's criminal.
I just would like those people to have walked in my shoes.
All 3 men had bright futures ahead. Now, they live with the nightmare in the aftermath of a fall that never should have happened if the Juliet balconies had been constructed properly and the doors sealed safely shut. If even one Campus Crest employee had followed the plans. A simple warning on the doors, which was placed there after the accident, could have helped prevent their tragic night.